The job that I do, the job that CEOs have, whether it's public or private sector, multifaceted. You got 25, 30 balls in the air. I have to get better at everything. I need to be better as a leader across the board in every single aspect of my job. I've got room for improvement everywhere. And those things that I'm good at, even those things that I'm best at, I've got room for improvement.
Hi, I'm Nick Warner. As a dad, a lucky husband, and as a business coach, I value people and relationships above all else. But next is winning, sustainability, and healthy culture. I've been a business owner for 25 years and served for decades as a special advisor to business and government leaders at all levels. Let's just say I've seen some stuff. My passion and my expertise are helping motivated professionals and businesses find the highest level confluence of what they want in life and business. This is what it feels like to be together at the top. Thank you to our sponsors, Scholl's Brick & Rogaski, Three Bridges Consulting, Kathy Olson at Ships and Trips, and Connect Strategies. Ryan Alsop is the Chief Executive Officer of Napa County, California. Yes, that's the wine capital of the world. Ryan's career as a public sector CEO is as impressive as any you'll ever see. Ryan has been the assistant CEO in Los Angeles County, one of the toughest public sector jobs out there, CEO in Kern County, home to Bakersfield in California's Central Valley, and for the last 2 years, he's been the CEO in world-class Napa County. I first intersected with Ryan during his time working external affairs for then California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger in 2004, back when I was climbing the ladder to become a top California lobbyist. I've been following Ryan's career with interest for many years, and it's a professional distinction to have him with us today. I'm so fascinated by your career arc and the things you've seen, Ryan. We can't wait to learn from you. Where are you today? And please say hello to the listeners of Together at the Top.
Hey, Nick. It's very, very kind of you, all those comments. It's great to be here with you. And I'm in my office in Napa, and you talked about the LA job being one of the hardest. I'll tell you, there's third world problems, first world problems, and then there's Napa problems. All right. So I'll just leave it at that. But it's great to be here. It's great to see you. And it's an honor and privilege to participate.
Thank you. Believe me, we feel the same way. We have so much to cover. You ready to roll?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Your background's fascinating. It's almost like you wrote down on a piece of paper, what's the most interesting and well-rounded way I can approach my career? A big part of our listener base is emerging leaders, Ryan. Some have a crooked road to get there. Yours is much more purposeful. Take us from college to your early career. How'd you approach your start? And did you always have your eye on larger prizes, or did you just kind of follow the next logical step?
It's a little bit of both. I think it's really important to recognize the fact that I didn't do it all on my own, right? I always had people around me that cared enough to speak up and advocate for me and help sort of push me along. And so in every situation, no matter whether it was my first job out of college or to today, right? You always have people looking out for you and helping you out along the way. And that really is probably the most important thing that I've had in my career. I've been lucky, really, with timing. And I think at its core, yeah, it's purposeful. I'm not always the one looking to grab the next big thing or the brass ring. I've always kind of felt, the right time and the opportunities seem to kind of be there. Again, I've had people helping me, but it always comes down to the real simple things that I talk to my kids about today. I have 4 kids. I've got a kid coming out of college, 22, graduating University of Montana. She did a couple of weeks ago. But I said, look, you may not know anything, right? But what people are looking for is somebody that works hard and can be counted on. Because if you're not counted on, you're discounted in life, in your job. And so having that mindset, I think, is the ingredient to, getting advocates and people around you to help you propel. Everything else is learned. And I think overall, I've had a little bit of luck, good family support, and all of that sort of stuff. So
tell me about what I'd call your natural leader posture. From a young age, you've had responsible jobs, and sometimes your bosses had a lot of power, which meant you probably had a lot of power at a young age. I took note early of how you handled yourself. My posture has always been straighter when I talk to you. Tell us, tell us through influence, position, and posture when you're ascendant and have some actual influence at a young age. How do you handle that? What were your thoughts at a young age with that kind of influence and a big business card, if you will?
Yeah, well, it wasn't lost on me. I think also it was learned at the same time. I think, being in some of these jobs, the gravity of them sinks in a bit. I look back on my career and I think that if there's one thing that I will admit is I took myself at times way too seriously. And that at times I would project that out. And, that's a funny thing. You don't listen as much. You're a little bit more in your communications. It affects your communications with people, your relationships. And I think that there were times when I took myself too seriously, probably because I was overthinking it and caring too much, but also it's a result of some of the jobs that I've had. So to your point, but I think with time you gain wisdom and experience, and you learn to not do that, take yourself so seriously, become a better listener. You become more adept at being authentic and more personal with folks, becoming a better communicator. Yeah, I wouldn't say it was jumping right in to a first job. Let's say working for, I worked for state senator pretty early on. I feel like I've always had a servant's heart, but I'm a different person today than I was then. And I think that's an important thing to point out.
Yeah, let's stay on that point for 1 minute. Tell us about the juxtaposition between now, this Ryan and Ryan. I'm going to say I met you, he was probably 30 years old or 30, maybe we were like young 30s.
Yeah, I was 36 when I became the assistant CEO down in Los Angeles in that position. And Schwarzenegger was before that, right? So yeah, I mean, I'm 54, right? I've had a family, kids, all of that stuff that changes who you are and your perspective. And it's a perspective that you take to work with you and dealing with people. But today, the person I am today has really been shaped by all of the different positions I've had in my career. I've been down in running at the top echelons of government down in SoCal, in the Central Valley, now in Northern California, urban, suburban, rural, all different types of people. Everybody's different. So I think all of that leads into a somewhat of a calmness. And yeah, I've been there before. I've got a trophy behind me here that says it's not my first rodeo.
Next to his Dodger hat, by the way, in NorCal with a Dodger hat on his desk. For those of you on audio only, go blue.
Right. Yeah.
But duly noted, not your first rodeo.
There you go. But yeah, I think, experience changes who you are. I think, I'm a little more calm and more sensible. And, and look, my job, a big part of my job in this role is mitigating chaos, eliminating chaos. Political environments can be chaotic. Really, my job is to stay on a pathway and keep everybody on a pathway, the organization, the business, the elected officials who are the politicians here, in an environment that is calm, not chaotic, productive. And I think it goes, I think no matter who you talk to, anybody in their 50s that's been at their jobs for a while, they're at a spot where they've been doing things long enough to where, they, just like our parents before us, right? They, you get some gray hairs and you realize what's important in life, what's not so important, and you learn how to manage all of that.
Yeah, I would say the game slows down a little bit with that maturity, and you've seen so many repetitions. You mentioned political. You're the CEO and you report to an elected board of directors, in this case called the County Board of Supervisors. As the CEO, do you consider your job political?
Yeah, I think it is a political job. I certainly think externally people looking in believe it is a political job. I'm appointed. I don't run for. I'm not in Los Angeles, right? In Los Angeles, they're going to have a CEO which is going to be a train wreck, frankly. But in my opinion, I'm appointed. I think the best description of the answer to your question is I need to be politically astute in my position, but I need to avoid being political.
That's really well put. I think it translates too to a private company because a lot of the construct is similar. I mean, the board of directors might not be elected, but there's still a separation. And I think that's a really interesting way to put it. I need to be politically astute, but not political. What's the difference? Like, crawl on that nook and cranny for a minute. How do you think about the difference between the two? Because I think I know, but I'm not sure how you're thinking about it.
Between being politically astute and I think that, I need to be aware of the fact that I'm working for 5 individually elected supervisors, all of whom have different agendas and different eyes and ears and brains. There is the individual goals and objectives of each of those people. I want to make sure that they're successful. They ran for an office for a reason. They're here collectively, right? Collectively, there are, they've got certain things that they're wanting to do. And then, outside outside of the organization, you've got stakeholders, no matter who they are, all who have agendas and whatnot. I shouldn't be, inserting myself, meddling into, pushing a specific cause or one person's agenda over the other. I need to be aware that there are differences in opinion. Being aware of that helps me with finding pathways to success where everybody succeeds at some level. And so that's really the difference, is being aware of that and not really participating or being part of that. I think when leaders like a CEO get involved with that, I mean, that's how you lose your job at the end. I think that, part of being politically astute, but not being political, is, communicating and having a relationship with everybody, including your bosses, right? Everybody that you talk to, that is rooted in consistency, honesty, and transparency 24/7 all the time. And that's the discipline that's the practice. And I think that's how people in positions like I have survive long term. I think that's how organizations are made to be successful. And I believe that that is the ingredient to avoiding chaos in organizations. And so, that would be my, I think, description between those two points.
Yeah, really, really good, really good. I mean, just this segment alone is, I got lost in it. I think it was just me and you talking. I realized there's probably thousands of people listening, but it's a really, really interesting nook and cranny. You're talking about the difference between being political and being politically aware, like really good for emergent leaders and for leaders, CEO or not. Really, really well described. You mentioned train wreck in LA County. I was going to be much more judicious. I was going to not ask you to call LA County difficult and arguably unmanageable. I'll say it for you, even though you came close. I want to hear about anything you want to say about LA, only because it's the largest local government system probably in the world, in the country for sure. But I'm curious about how it shaped you. I'm going to call it leadership through constant turbulence and drama in LA. Any comment about LA I'm interested in, but also how that shaped you into not wanting that in future places you were leading.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for the question. I think, LA is a nation state, right? It's 100 plus thousand employees and I don't know, 30, 35 billion, $40 billion budget. Yeah, it's large. And it's really, I've told people that when you're looking, the city of Los Angeles and the county of Los Angeles, people are going to be listening to this going, this guy are shark tanks. And they are, it's a really, at least when I was there, it's a really off with your head sort of mentality. Now, that is probably not a fair description today. I'm super far removed from, there's a completely different leadership team there. There's a different board of supervisors there. I am very friendly with Catherine Barger, who's there. She serves on a statewide board with me. She's terrific. Things could be different today. When I was there, it was I was working under Bill Fujioka, who was the CEO at the time. $1 million, $2 million, $5 million is a rounding error, and I was running all the lobbying and running Sacramento and DC and doing all of that, and so I was very busy, but you talk about political, I mean, each of those supervisors has got 2 million constituents each. And all of them, each office is 40, 50 staff members. It's outrageously complicated. I learned how to survive in a system like that. I was there for 8 years until I got pushed out when Bill left. Bill left and his whole management team was taken out, essentially. And that's what happens in the big leagues sometimes. And the trick is finding your way through that, navigating and not panicking. That was the first time that had ever happened to me. And I got some good advice from some people who had been around a while saying, that's what happens in the big time, right? And I found my way through, actually wound up in Kern County following that. But yeah, great experience there in terms of just sort of perspective, right? Having that experience, taking that experience then to the Central Valley, and now to Napa, which is, our county's total of 135,000 people. Los Angeles is 11 million. So I think having the perspective of that to here has been, I think that's the biggest and best takeaway from Los Angeles that I can think of.
Yeah, I think about that sometimes in parenting. Like a similar axiom is I try to remember the things that were maybe done to me by my parents or like adults or bosses when I was younger, and I try not to do those things. So I wonder if in LA, A, I don't want to be in a system where people aren't rooting for each other, we have common goals, but B, I'm going to try as a leader, as a manager, as a dad, frankly, as a friend too, not to do the things to you that didn't work for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's really well put. That's exactly right. And the other thing about LA in those days, everybody's X's and O's. I mean, you lose sight of the fact that, and this is something that I think has been really important in my career as a leader in dealing, managing employees, right? And that's seeing people like I look at you, Nick, and, yeah, you're a successful guy. You built a business, you sold it, you're an excellent business coach, you're doing these things, but you're more valuable than that. And I say that because outside of that, right, you are loved. You are somebody that people love. You have friends. You have presumably a spouse I've not met, kids. I know you have kids. I mean, man, they love you. You are the most important thing in their life. That's way more important than anything that you can find in the workplace. And having supervisors and people that you work for and people that you work around see you like that. That helps with work-life balance. That helps with, being authentic, being a good leader, having flexibility, understanding people. That really wasn't apparent and part of my life in Los Angeles, even though I had a lot of employees. Maybe it was there. I wasn't cognizant of it. Maybe this is something innate in me that my parents taught me. But I just remember it being so X's and O's, really easy to say, you know what, you're out of a job. See ya. You misspelled a word in this letter that went to the Speaker of the Assembly. Adios. It was that kind. And I know you know that. We did business with you, right? Back then. But I've taken, that, and I think that that's helped me develop as a leader and as a manager. And, today I talk to our employees, and one of the first things I talk about are expectations. Like, hey, what can you expect from me? I start with that before I tell them, hey, this is what I expect from you. And a lot of times it's the same. You can flip it, expect me to be a good leader, right? Expect me to be loyal. Expect me to be invested in your success. All those things. But I do say, expect me to treat you like a human being and understand that you're way more valuable as a human being in all of the roles that you play outside of being here in the office with me. And I understand that. And I want to make sure you're successful in those roles and in those relationships. And having that approach, I think, has serves me well. I sleep better at night. Again, this goes to just sort of being a little bit more calm. But again, going back to Los Angeles, I didn't feel it there. So
we appreciate your time. If you like what you've heard so far, do me a favor and leave a 5-star review and share with your friends. We'll be right back. The law firm of Scholes, Brick & Rogaski is a go-to partner for me. I work the most with partner Michael Rogaski. I go to them for business contracts, strategic legal counsel to maneuver through or around complex business situations, HR and employee issues, startup needs, intellectual property protections, collection matters, and recently the purchase or sale of a business. I really like the fact they tell me if they're not the best fit and they give me a warm referral if I need it. Also, unlike so many attorneys, are totally level-headed and calm. I've experienced it like their slogan says, Small firm service, large firm result. Contact Michael Rogaski at sbrlawsd.com. Kathy Olson at Ships and Trips is as creative and as willing a travel partner as you can find. These days, you can plan a lot of trips on your own, but for those trips that require more intricate planning, tons of time, or local contacts and savvy, Kathy's the best. My family and friends have worked with her countless times in every travel country, setting, and season you can think of. Contact Kathy with a C at shipsandtripstravel.com. One of the through lines from, I'm going to guess, from working for a senator, through your job in the governor's office, through for sure LA, and then knowing some of what I know about rough and tumble Kern County, I'll just say for myself, I struggled over time, kind of like compounding interest is a good thing, compounding stress is a bad thing. The compounding stress of bullies, know-it-alls, and a-holes. So when I came out of lobbying after 30 years, the combative environment that it can be, and frankly that it is, and many times I was bringing the fight. It wasn't they were fighting me, I was fighting them. When I moved over to coaching, I have really, really strong parameters around no know-it-alls, no a-holes, no bullies. I'm on the same team. How have you processed that? How do you think about that? Any mechanisms or thoughts on whether it's labor, a free radical legislator, or somebody in the community? It's a number of things that comes from a lot of places, but bullies, know-it-alls, and, pardon the French, a-holes also. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's really well put, Nick. I feel the same way. It's funny. I purposefully infuse in discussions that I'm having with large groups of people, employees or whatever, actually making the statement, I don't know it all. Having that mindset, right? I think that in environments like that, it's really hard to be productive. It's really hard to trust people, and trust is a key ingredient to productivity and success. And so, yeah, I think, when you see it, you know it. And, at this point in my career, I'm not vindictive. And I just kind of smile, and, I get to make decisions in the role that I play. I get to make the decisions, right, on whether or not I promote that individual or work with that individual or provide more responsibility, or, if it's somebody out in the private sector wanting to do something with the county, I can make a decision. I'd rather not go out down that path. I'd rather not work with you. And so I think that's probably really good. But yeah, I've had handfuls and handfuls of those types of individuals over my career, kind of working in the same circles as you, being a lobbyist, which I was for a long time. Yeah, that was the case in Los Angeles. Less so than in Kern. Kern County was, I enjoyed my time there. That was there's some different politics there, different issues. The people in the community are different. They respond to different things. They have different needs. But it was not the place that Los Angeles was. Surprisingly, there are many similarities between Kern and even Napa, even though they're different sizes and different places, and obviously different politics. But there are agricultural sensibilities. People here in Napa want to make money. Same thing in Kern County. So there's a business sentiment, things like that. And there's 2 degrees separation here. I mean, everybody knows one another here in Napa, and Kern County's the same way. But yeah, you made good points. And yeah, nobody likes a know-it-all. That's for those up-and-comers that might be listening, write that down and remember it. Nobody likes a know-it-all. Practice humility and learn from people.
Yeah, it's amazing for you at your level. I mean, CEO of essentially 3 big companies, they just happen to be public sector, to start meetings or to let people know, I don't know it all. You don't say that to you. Yeah, I say it to people.
Yeah.
For me, one of the things I observe, I'm several thousand one-on-one coaching sessions in, and probably couple dozen organizations, is when you show up at your level, or even as an emergent leader with humility, the whole world opens up to you. But when you show up at that leadership level and you've got it all figured out, there's a ceiling right above your head. And so as a business coach, I don't see that very often, because those people don't come to see me, but I'm marinated with a lot of those people in politics and government and big business also. So it really strikes me when you say, Ryan Alsop says, hey, to be clear, I don't know it all. I don't know it all either. Part of the reason I like being confidential session, and even in the sanctity of a group session, is I want to share my mistakes also. Yeah, I've been very successful and so have you, but it was not a straight road. It was not a straight line. I made a lot of mistakes.
Oh yeah.
I love the humility. I love to, when people say to me or I say to them, I didn't think about that. Or what if you did it this way instead of that way?
Yeah.
Or how about you didn't do it wrong? You did it right and it didn't work. So we got to back it up and regather.
Yeah, you had asked a question earlier. The younger Ryan would, taking yourself seriously, right? Uh, Back then, you probably knew you didn't know it all, but you didn't want to admit it, and you didn't want to verbally state it, right? And so there was a stubbornness, and and that has morphed, right, in the older after lots of experiences into this now, being very having clarity around the importance of that. And as a leader, practicing that, even wearing it on your sleeve, right? In talking about it and leading with that, whether you say it or not. I mean, individual meetings, group meetings, I mean, even with your bosses, right? People that are looking at you and, evaluating your performance, having that mentality even there, at that level with them, understanding like, hey, I don't know it all. I'm open to, I want to be this great, fantastic, magnanimous, leader for you, but you got to be willing to listen. And again, having the discipline to understand your, you have limits.
Yeah, for sure. Let's dig into this. You're a top hiring authority, and you have been. And I'd like to learn from you and allow others to do the same thing. I'm going to baseline it against one of my favorite books, Good to Great by Jim Collins. In that book, he talks about the people before the product, the who before the what. When you're talent scouting, either in your C-suite or for in the private sector, what would be executive vice presidents for you? It's department directors. What do you look for, especially in emerging leaders that will rise in your office or run one of your departments?
Yeah, I think, look, I'm always recruiting, always. I'm always interviewing. People may not know it. But when I get a chance, I let people know that I have that mindset. And so if you're working here in my office in a particular job, I'm watching, right? And you're interviewing. I'm paying attention to what's going on in the business that we're in. I think whether it's private sector or public sector, everything comes down to your hiring decisions, the decisions you're making around personnel when you're onboarding. Nothing's more important in an organization. Culture, to making sure that, your culture is being developed and pushed downward. And so that's hiring is critical. I think that, you're looking for people who, another very important thing, and something for up and comers to understand is that if you find yourself getting involved too frequently with your subordinates or holding their hand too frequently in work that you have hired them to do, you probably made the wrong hiring decision. That's very important. That's a very important discipline. I'm not a micromanager, but I want to make a good hiring decision. I want to be clear on expectations. I want to lay out what the goals and objectives are, and I want those accomplished. And that's what I'm looking for in people when we hire them. I think it starts with a demonstrated, whether that's visually or through a resume, through recommendations or whatever, a career demonstrative of hard work and accountability. Again, can you be counted on? And those are the basic ingredients. That's what I'm looking for. People that got a sparkle in their eye, people that go a bit beyond being just a clock puncher coming to work because, that's just the job that I've got. Somebody that's, passionate and excited. You can tell that, you can see those people. I'm not afraid to also shirk the norm, right? In business, whether it's public or private, you tend to look to certain leaders that have been here for a while, right? And you're going to look to elevate them and put them into a different leadership role. I'm not afraid to go out and beyond that and look downward into the organization and grab a 24, 25-year-old that's been out of school for a while, that's showing real potential, real promise that's been demonstrated. I'm not afraid to put that person into a leadership role, even though when you tell them that, they're probably looking at you, they're holding on to the cracks in the wall and with their white as a ghost, and no, you can do it, and giving them the right coaching and letting them run, giving them some good advice, supporting them. Yeah, but look, hiring decisions, most important thing. The people that you're bringing on and surrounding yourself with always should be smarter than you, should be better than you. That's the recipe for strong, healthy, good organizations, great organizations, to your point, and then success as a leader.
You mentioned in LA X's and O's, and I might say the X's and O's in private sector are sell, bottom line. Comment on relational versus transactional in that same space when you're talent scouting, when you're watching how people handle their business. And I want to ask your input on the vendor community, also private sector that serves counties. But I'm curious on your thoughts on relational versus transactional for leaders, emerging leaders, and I guess partners in the private sector.
Sure. I'll give you an example. Somebody that I hear from that I knew once upon a time, but not well, that, says, "Hey, how you doing? This is great. Can I swing by and say hi?" Sure. And they come in and then it's a sales pitch, and the sales pitch is super glib and no appreciation for what my goals and objectives are or what my business plan is. They've probably not spent any time looking at, our county strategic plan or understanding what direction. It's just sort of like, "Hey, I do this. I knew you when, and carry my water for me and help me get a contract." It's that kind of a thing.
Call that product dumping also. Like, are you thinking about Ryan's, what Ryan needs or his frame of reference? I'm just going to come in and dump my product on you because I have some pre-existing relationship with you. You don't like that for the look on your face. It looks like.
I don't like that. And I get invited to be part of these leadership things that CSAC puts on, where I'm speaking to a crowd of private sector people who are doing business or wanting to do business with counties. And, by all accounts, they all have something to offer, but I talk to them about this very thing, and it's kind of a turnoff. I go, don't send me a cold email. If I don't know you, don't send me an email and then a follow-up email saying, "Hey, I'm touching base again." Develop a relationship, learn a little bit about, look, our strategic plan. If you go look at San Diego or Kern County, their strategic plan is one page. It's easy to read. It's easy to find. You can figure out how to help, be deliberate and specific. And it's just kind of a turnoff. And I think that is the case with really anybody that I'm doing business with, whether it be, somebody in the vendor, as you said, community, or just anybody else in my sphere, in my circle, other people, stakeholders or whatever. Yeah, I think they're doing themselves a disservice by not, authenticity is important. I've been around long enough to kind of see through that and read it. And I am attracted to authentic, genuine people. And I am, I want to help those people, right? I want to do business with those people. I want to have a relationship, an extended relationship with those types of people. So you brought up a good point. And at the end of the day, authenticity is critical. And how are you going to help me be successful? You know what I do. I need help being successful. I need you to have an understanding of what that looks like, as opposed to having it be all about you.
We appreciate your time. If you like what you've heard so far, do me a favor and leave a 5-star review and share with your friends. We'll be right back. Three Bridges Consulting did the video on the recently rebranded NickWarnerConsulting.com. I really love the video because it helps me sell by speaking directly to my prospective clients. Dennis and Sean at Three Bridges Consulting are high-level storytellers for the purpose of helping my prospective coaching clients understand what differentiates me from the pack. A recent new coaching client literally said to me, "You don't need to sell me, Nick. Your video sold me. I understand what you do and how you work with me as a client." That is a true story. I love that. Contact 3BC at threebridgesconsulting.co. Ken and his team at Connect Strategies head up my post-rebrand digital marketing campaign. I'm moving up the rankings for business coaches and consultants quickly. Connect is 20 years in the business, and I feel like they're really focused on my account. I refer business coaching clients to Connect too, and I get really good reports on result, professionalism, and drive. Thank you, Connect. Contact Ken at KNECHT There's a reason I've been so excited for this interview. It's so interesting to hear the way you're thinking about these things, and some of the authenticity is very important to me. I love that. It's simple. but for you, it's true. For me, it's true also. I really appreciate that, the way you said that.
Well, we live in a hyper inauthentic world. I mean, that's just a reality. And so I think for young people, especially, and I try to teach my kids this, be authentic, be compassionate, be empathetic, see people for the people that you deal with. They're loved by other people. They have other responsibilities. Those are all critical things in dealing with having relationships with people going forward.
If you read my website word for word, which you'd be a nerd if you do that, I don't recommend it, but it says one of the things I believe is being a great human is 90% of the way of being a great employer. The rest is some skill and some laws. But when you bring the view and the frame of reference for other people the way you're bringing it, I'm not surprised you've done so well. It's also beautiful from a human standpoint, but being a great person is a huge part of being a great leader.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Nick. I've always known you to be like that. I've always found you to be pretty straightforward and authentic. And I've appreciated that about you. I really have. I mean, so I'm telling you, I'm taking the opportunity to let you know, I'm not going to wait for your funeral to come up. Like I was having a conversation with Jim Manker at CSAC, Jim?
I do.
The other day, he was up here and we were talking about how everybody kind of waits for people to die, to say good things about them. It really doesn't matter, right? You need to do that with people while you can and while they're in front of you, right? And you're talking to them. And so, yeah, I think you're an authentic, kind, great person. And I think other people think that about you, and you should know that.
I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. It means a lot. CSAC, for reference, has come up a couple times. For those who don't know, is California State Association of Counties, as you might imagine. We've talked about emerging leaders and those working for you, and even some ways, those I'm coaching. What do you still need to work on? I'm curious what you're great at. I think we've heard some of that, but what do you still need to get better at? And how do you think about mentors at this high stage of your career, Ryan?
Nick, I need to get better at everything. Everything that I do. I am not an expert at all in anything. And so whether it's having emotional intelligence, which I think is a key ingredient to, again, being authentic and seeing people for who they are, looking, or managing a budget and fiscal issues, or dealing with sensitive personnel issues, or having to manage a county through COVID, a pandemic, which I had to do down in Kern County. The job that I do, the job that CEOs have, whether it's public or private sector, multifaceted. You got 25, 30 balls in the air. I have to get better at everything. And so that's how I would answer your question. I don't know if there's just one thing. I need to be better as a leader across the board in every single aspect of my job. And that's the mindset I have. And I have to stay in school, continue to educate myself, continue to learn from people, to continue listening, continue reading, and developing as a person. So I've got room for improvement everywhere, no matter what I'm doing. And those things that I'm good at, especially good at, it's great. I feel comfortable doing, with certain things, but even those things that I'm best at, I've got room for improvement.
It's the coolest thing ever. It really is. I mean, my job blows me away. I don't mean to make it about me, but I work with people at times that, like yourself included, who have higher level jobs than I've ever had. I've just been in the room for a lot of these things, whether it's public or private sector, so I'm comfortable there. But the humility that I hear from you, and that frankly the people I am attracted to and that I work with, blows my mind. Like, there's no reason for you to be that humble. It's just awesome. Where do mentors play? And you mentioned books, paying attention, listening, learning, school. Do mentors still play a role for you, whether you're contemporaries or frankly older folks?
Yeah, they do. Like I said, I've been fortunate where, throughout my career, I've had people in positions, in places that I've worked, that have been mentors to me, and have supported me. They've been kind, and they have been, they've helped propel my career. And I've learned something from each and every one of those people. I've learned not only things that I've applied in my own leadership style, I've also learned what not to do along the way with some of these people. So I've had a whole mix of different people. I mean, Cassandra Pye, Cassandra, she hired me for the job with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Super great woman, great leader. And she served as a mentor. I don't speak to her every week or anything. I run into her from time to time, but at the time, she's an example of somebody that wrapped their arms around me, supported me, and I learned from. But you learn from the people and experiences that you've had in your life, and and it continues for me. I continue to read books. Somebody gave me a book, a couple of weeks ago, but it's this book of it's about being a father, and every day you open it and it's got the date, and it's a little passage about just some thoughts on being a dad. And I've been looking at that and reading it. Everything kind of plays in. My wife keeps me on my toes, and I learn from her.
Yeah. And also seek her approval, want her to respect you and be proud of you. That's a big thing. That levels me up. My wife levels me up because I really want her to be proud of me.
Yeah. My wife's way smarter than me. Way smarter, way more well-read. And she teaches me. My kids teach me. Yeah. And I mean, even people that I work around, subordinate people, right, teach me. I have subordinate people that I deal with, I interact with, whether they know it or not, are mentors. And I learn something from them. So, but that's a discipline, Nick. I think that's a practice that is important for folks who are looking to take on greater and greater responsibilities in their career. You've got to have that mindset where you don't know it all, and you become better by listening and learning. And it's not always just about, oh, that person did this thing that way and that's great. It's also about, the guy that I worked for a period of time in a really hard time in Los Angeles that was basically taking a nap as I was talking to him in a meeting and telling him something important, sitting 2-3 feet away from me, looking right at me, taking a nap. And that really happened, right? And that's a turnoff. I would never do that. People being late, showing up, hey, we have a meeting, and you're going to meet with somebody that's in a higher position than you, and you find yourself sitting in a chair outside that person's office. And it's beyond one episode. It's a pattern in practice. And the 10 minutes turns into 20, and the 20 minutes turns into 40, and you're still sitting there. No apologies. They bring you in. I don't do that.
You remember how disrespectful that felt?
Disrespectful to the people that you are surrounding yourself with. I remember how I felt and what I thought about that particular individual, right? That's something that I learned and I apply to my role now, and I have for quite a while. I'm never late. I'm always respectful of people's time, and it doesn't matter if it's the janitor, George. I know him by his first name here. I'm on time, and I'm respectful of his time. Yeah. Anyway, you learn all sorts of things.
Yeah, I think that's great. The time thing in particular, but part of your point was you learned. You mentioned Cassandra Pye, who's a mentor to many. Still to this day, I hear her name, that same mentoring space. But also, it's no fun. But the negative mentoring, pay attention to what doesn't work. Pay attention to how you feel. Don't lose that. And I mentioned before, don't do the things to other people that annoy the out of you. I think it's great. I mean, you look for negative mentors too. That did not work for me. I'm not going to do that.
That's right.
Yeah. Hey, before we get into the fourth quarter here and some quick fire questions, you've mentioned your family, your wife, your kids several times. Talk to us about, especially coming up when it's really hard. Now it's playing out a little bit more. You're at cruising altitude. Your kids are older, but talk to us about the role of family coming up and even now.
Yeah, I'm looking at a piece of art that I have on my wall just over the screen that I'm talking to you on, and it's a note from my kids and my wife. My daughter, who's 22 now, wrote it at the time. It looks like it was back in Los Angeles, but it says, hardworking dad, we love you, best dad out of the dads, Los Angeles County. I probably was having a bad day. And there were many bad days, stressful, right? And I also had a long commute. I was living in South Orange County, and commuting to downtown Los Angeles is a nightmare. But my family's been everything. I mean, I suspect that your family drives you. That's your engine. That's my engine. My wife's been super supportive. I've been lucky throughout my career where my wife has been able to be at home. That's something that she chose. She's not anymore. She's got a career of her own outside of the house, and that's happened because we've got kids that are now out of the house, right? And so her time's freed up a bit. But no, it's been everything, and she's been super supportive. My kids have been obviously supportive. They motivate me, and they're, whether they know it or not, are either consciously or subconsciously driven by them and their welfare and well-being and, everything that I do. And I think this is just generally with men, right? Everything that I do, we come to work and we tend to think like, this is for you. I'm doing this for you. And this is how men think. But yeah, it's true. I feel like they are interwoven in everything that I've done and have been by my side and part of my evolution professionally. And without them, I might have gone down a different path, made a different decision somewhere along the way. And so, yeah, I owe everything to them, and it continues to be that way today.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's really soulful to hear that. You up for some quick fire questions here in the fourth quarter?
Yeah.
So much fun. I don't want it to be the fourth quarter. I want it to be the first quarter. I want overtime.
Quick fire.
What do you do for fun and stress relief?
I run. Yeah, I'm a runner. So I run less than I used to. I have a, when you run races, you get all these race bibs. And so I had all these race bibs that I collected over the years. I've run like 20 marathons, 20 half marathons.
Whoa.
There are people that are like, that's novice compared to a lot of people, but I had all these race bibs and I had this big picture frame that I came across when we bought and sold a house or whatever. And anyway, I shoved all these race bibs into a picture frame in my office because like, hey, I put some work into that. I want to look at it and like, it's a conversation piece, but I run. I listen to podcasts when I run. I listen to music, but I run, man. I get out there and run. And that's about all the time I have because it's usually, soup to nuts, 45 minutes to an hour a day. So I get out into the open, into the wild, out here through the vineyards, over the hills.
What's been the most influential mistake you've made or lesson you've learned during your career?
The lesson I've learned is over my career is I can always be better at everything that I do. I've made a bunch of mistakes, and I've made mistakes in life personally. I've made mistakes in life professionally. It has by no means been a perfect career, whether it's been dealing with people or even just decisions that I might have made, again, whether it's personal or professional. But I guess what I have learned is that there is room for improvement in every aspect of what I do, whether it's being a husband or a dad, a friend or a boss or a CEO working for 5 bosses, and then ultimately a community of bosses. So
what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Wow, best piece of advice. Bill Fujioka in LA County, I remember he was telling me he had a quirky sense of humor. He was a great guy. You met Bill, right? You've known Bill. I don't know if it's the greatest piece of advice I've ever gotten, but he said, when there's 5 phases to every new job. And I go, he goes, have you ever heard that? I go, no. And he goes, well, the first phase is, yeah, woo, I got the job. And then the second phase is like, woo, it's a little less enthusiastic. And then the third phase is, oh shit. And then the fourth is you fight, you stick with it, you focus, you hunker down. And the fifth is success. Look, I've had people, whether it's been my father, whether it's been people that I've worked for, whether it's been colleagues or friends or peers, or even employees throughout my career and my life, I've been given advice, a whole bunch of advice. And I can say that with confidence because it's influenced who I am today, that advice that I've been given. And people have given me advice, whether they have known they were giving it to me or not. And so I would just say that, the best advice has been everything that I've learned to this point, either have been told or what I've observed, really being open to all of that and taking it and learning from it and applying it, whether it's to my own personal life or professionally. And again, not being a know-it-all.
I find that inspiring. What are you excited about going forward, and what should I have asked you that I didn't ask you?
I don't know. I first off excited about going forward. I think just the prospect of being creative, finding things that add value in the lives of people, whether those people are part of your organization and working for you, or, whether it's, the people that you're working for directly, elected officials, or the people that are out in the community, finding ways to provide value in their lives, a return on investment, finding, making sure that I'm contributing more than I cost. And that, ultimately, if I were to ever leave, and I'm not leaving, but, making sure that everybody knew that something really important was missing. You're going to continue to move on, but, there's something missing that we had that was important, and we acknowledge that. And that, that is a mindset that I think is important for people to have. But I'm excited about, again, the prospect of finding additional ways to provide value in people's lives overall. That's the best part about my job, this public sector job that I have. It's the being in a position to actually, I've got this funny quote on my wall here. It's taped with a piece of paper, and it says, "We are the music makers and we are the dreamers of dreams." Do you know where that quote's from?
I do not.
It's Willy Wonka.
Ah.
Don't ask me how it came up, but it dawned on me, and somebody said, "Well, what the hell is that?" I said, "Well, what's Willy Wonka? Have you ever seen Willy Wonka? The original, of course, Gene Wilder." But look, I'm in a position. What it means is we are in a position as leaders in local government, arguably doing some of the most important work being done by anybody, anywhere in this country. Instead of shuffling paper around and existing and looking for, counting the time down to when you leave and retire or whatever. Like, let's do something meaningful. Let's go out and improve that park. Let's go out and make sure that, the people who are interacting to get things permitted in the state of California, which is already hard. Let's make sure our business operations we have a culture of paying attention to their time and their money. Yeah, I'm excited about that. I'm excited about being in a position to actually have an impact on people and their lives. And that's a super awesome privilege. Yeah, that's what keeps me coming to work.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
it really is. With your indulgence and the indulgence of our producer, Riley Byrne, I know I'm close to time, but I just want to ask you one last question, which is, let's just say I was to come in and do a 360 review of your office. What would you want people, and what would people say about you as a leader on your team?
Yeah, I would think that I'd want them to say that he's a good leader. And by that, I mean, I want to be a leader that people can be proud of. It's something I told the board when they were interviewing me, I remember, because I said it to the last group of people. I want you to be proud of the decision that you made to put me in this position. And I want you to be proud of that and say, that's the best decision I've ever made. I want our employees and the people around me to be proud of me as their leader. And that's pretty heavy. Like that, that's really important, that pride. I'd want them to say that I was committed to their success, to their marketability, to them being successful at home or in their careers. I would want them to say that I was accountable, took ownership of decisions, and accountable, that I was gracious with praise and putting people out in front and allowing them to lead and celebrating them. So I would want all of that. There's a bit of, I want people to know that I'm understanding and forgiving and flexible and attentive, available, a good communicator, and somebody that they could trust and count on at the end of the day. Hardworking, and they can count on me. Going back to the original theme. And maybe I will have you in it to do a 360. We did do a 360 on my first evaluation here. The board did, and went around to all the leadership and got input. I do believe in that type of a review. But yeah, that's kind of the list.
Really good. Really good. You're becoming the coach's coach. You have my rapt attention. I suspect others too. It's really good. I almost hate to end it here. Ryan Alsop, you did an amazing job on this podcast. Thank you to our outstanding team at Podigy Podcast and to our producer, Riley Byrne. Thank you for listening, and see you next month on Together at the Top. Thank you so much for your time. Together at the Top thrives off listeners like you. To stay connected, follow our socials in the show notes and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We will be releasing our show on the last Tuesday of every month. See you next time. At Nick Warner Consulting, we exist to coach and consult motivated professionals. I meet with you on Zoom in focused 90-minute sessions, working toward your goals and developing next-level business skill sets. My job is to add value to your organization and your career. To learn more, visit www.nickwarnerconsulting.com or call me directly at 916-765-3576.